So in my video about socialization, I got a couple of people who made some comments. One person, a positive person, said, "I'm a Christian, but people say we brainwash our kids. I don't want to be negative, and I want my children to believe, but I don't know why I feel this way." A negative person stated, "This sounds like brainwashing and initiation to make children believe in Christianity rather than find their own spirituality." Hi. So what does the word brainwash mean? And it seems like Christians are always being accused of brainwashing their kids. And I feel like it's more telling of a person's lack of critical thinking. And so what does the word brainwash mean? Webster says that brainwashing is a forcible indoctrination to induce someone to give a basic political, social, or religious belief and attitude and to accept contrasting, regimented ideas. So you are getting someone to give up their basic political, social, or religious beliefs and attitudes. So then the question is, what kind of basic social, political attitudes does an infant have, or does any child have? The Cambridge Dictionary says that brainwashing is to make someone believe something by repeatedly telling him or her that it's true and preventing any other information from reaching him or her. I mean, if this is brainwashing, then Christians are doing a pretty bad job of it, considering that the statistics are saying that 60 to 80% of people who are raised in the church leave the church by age 18. And when someone accuses Christians of brainwashing, like, they don't think back to what an infant and a child is. Technically, an infant is being brainwashed. When you're holding an infant and loving them and then they like it, are they not forming an opinion? I mean, I'm not an apologist. I really don't care to argue with people about this kind of stuff. People can believe whatever they want to believe, which also leads to something else. People will believe whatever they want to believe, but where are they getting those beliefs from? Somebody is teaching them that, or they are absorbing that from somewhere. And all of the life experiences and the emotions and the feelings that they've had about something is going to steer them in that particular way. And that's where, when people say, "Oh, you're brainwashing your 4-year-old," I'm like, okay, so if a 4-year-old, are you supposed to never say anything to your child? And so then when they go out and meet a child on the playground and they're playing and the child says, "You're ugly and you're stupid." So then as a parent, do we not say anything because we don't want to brainwash them, or do they get to be brainwashed by the other child? And when the child starts to go to school, I mean, many kids are in preschool at the age of like 3, 4 years old. Are teachers not allowed to say anything to them? Do they not say, "You have to be kind to other people because people are all equal"? I mean, technically that's brainwashing, because who says people are all equal? Maybe they're not. Maybe the person has to come to that conclusion on their own. And that's why, like, people tend to accuse Christians of brainwashing, or religious people, but they're not really thinking through the fact that everybody has a worldview. We all have to come up with some kind of template through which we view this world. And as Christian parents, if we believe in salvation and we believe in Jesus Christ, why would we not want to give that to our children? And that's where I just don't get where people get these ideas from, and then they accuse you of brainwashing. Are there extremists? Of course there are. There are extremists no matter where you go or what you do. But I have to say that in the end, even with extremists, even with people who seem like they're just blindly following the crowd, people will always do what they want to do. It doesn't matter who they are, what they've been taught. People will always do what they want to do, and people will rebel if they're being forced to do something they don't want to. As evidenced by the fact that you have kids and you can, I mean, like, in the homeschool community, there are a lot of people who try to protect their kids from stuff, movies and games and whatever. And so they completely shield their children and they say, "No, that's not good." But you know what happens. I mean, if the kid wants to see it, I've seen every single parent fail. I don't like to pick out specific people, but let's pick out the public people. You look at the family like the Dugars. I am not a fan of them. I've never been a fan of them. But you see what they did. They completely sheltered their kid. You could call it brainwashing. I mean, down to the way that they dressed, their hair and all of that. But then you see eventually the kids all rebelled. I mean, they did what they want to do. Then that's what they will do. And it's such a tragic story with their oldest son. I can't even begin to fathom. And I have a lot of thoughts on that for sure. But that's my thought on it. That's what I think about the brainwashing. I really don't care if people think I'm brainwashing my kids. Okay, I mean, everybody, it's not coercion. If you are forcing your child to do something, I mean, you can basically guarantee that they're going to rebel. The next question was, would it be better to teach them to not have fear of being alone? This question came in regards to the socialization of children. If you saw that one video where I said that children need to have at least 2 different distinct friend groups, there were a couple of people who were like, oh no, they need to be taught to be alone. That's how people become geniuses. And I'm just like, the only way that a person can become a genius or a thought leader is if other people are listening to them. But how will other people learn to listen to them if that leader is not social and doesn't know how to lead people? I mean, that's kind of like what I'm thinking. I'm all for alone time. I am of the personal belief that everybody needs quiet and everybody needs alone time and time to process and recover. I consider myself pretty extroverted. Crowds don't bother me. I enjoy being around people. But even I need alone time to think. Like when I exercise, I don't like listening to anything because I just want quiet. And so when I say that that kids need to have distinct friend groups and that people freak out, humans have a social and emotional need. They just have this deepest emotional need to have social connection. I mean, that's just the truth, and it never ends. If you have a person who's completely fine from birth to be alone like all the time, that's not healthy. Like that's like at the extreme. I've never known anybody like that. Even if you talk about like kids who are always online, what are they doing? They're being social. I mean, people always seek social interaction in whichever way they can get it. And the fact that more people in this world are lonely rather than happy being alone, it shows you that there are serious issues. I mean, like people are just not connected with others. People, they call loneliness an epidemic. But so kids have to be taught to make friends. I mean, they need to learn how to be social. And I'll tell you this, the thing is that kids who are lonely, they don't have that choice. And like I said, I always would rather that a child or a person grow up to have that choice, that they choose in order to be able to make friends, not have friends, whatever it is, because that's what makes people happier. There's a psychological concept called a locus of control. And when I first read about it, I was like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I've seen, but I could never kind of put into words. People need to have control. Now, it could be an internal locus of control. It could be an external locus of control. And if you think about anything in life, right, people are more at peace when they feel like they have some kind of control, right? Whenever people are upset, what do they say? I feel like I have no control. But the thing is that if you give a person more skills so that they have more control, they're just going to be healthier. So, I think that's it. Obviously, I'm going to talk a little bit about the children who are online all the time and socialize that way. They're really not interacting with other people. They're not learning any kind of socialization skills. To some degree, with some kids who have completely gone online, sometimes I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, they're just going to have to figure this out. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. Because again, that's their exertion of their ability to control something, right? They are choosing something that way. But my biggest concern with these kids who are completely online is if they end up having children. Because it doesn't matter if the parents want to be online all the time. Children need emotional, physical interaction in order to grow up to be healthy. Emotional neglect is a serious, serious childhood issue, and that is considered trauma. The question about the difference between parenting, advising, and mentoring. Yes, I have that. What is the difference between parenting and mentoring, advising? If you saw that video about it, it's more about what I would say is the attitude and respect on the part of the parent. When your children are younger, there is no way to deny from anyone. When children are little, they are vulnerable. They can be forced to do whatever it is that the adult wants them to do, right? You can force them to go to church. Now, hopefully you're not forcing them and they're not screaming and kicking. If they're tired, you obviously need to be respectful of that. But we say we're going to grandma's house for Christmas. Okay. we're going to church today. Okay. We're going on vacation. Okay. Like, they do these things. They follow along because they are children, and we really can't take it into consideration all the time what they want. We are always thinking about our kids. We want the best for them. Going on vacation with the family, going to church. This is all good for them. But I think you understand what I mean. Parenting, it's like teaching. It's one way from you to them. You are endowing upon them all of the skills that they need in order to survive. You teach them how to make the bed. You teach them to pick up. You are telling them that this is right. You are telling them that this is the way it needs to be. And there is a lot of just training in that way that goes. Like, you need to brush your teeth before you go to bed. You need to, wash your hands after you use the toilet. I mean, these are very, very training type of skills that have to be done. Like, there's really not a lot of negotiation that goes on. But what mentoring and advising is hopefully, like I said, between 0 and up to age 13, you have done all of that training in the spiritual realm, in the emotional realm, in the mental, physical. You've trained them that they need exercise, that they need to take care of their bodies, that they need to sleep. You have taught them all these things at a point when they are still very much open to listening to you. Okay? That's the biggest difference too. Because once they get to a certain age, not that you're not still talking to them, but they are going to very much develop their own opinions. I mean, you listen to parents who have adolescents. Oh, they don't listen to me. Oh, they shut down. Oh, they just blow me off. I mean, it's just constant. And so at that point, it's because you have to start taking into consideration what their feelings are, what their emotions, what they're communicating to you. They might say, I don't want to go to grandma's house. Okay, she always is mean to me. She does these things. Now they're fighting back. Okay, now they have an opinion, and they will just dig their heels. I had one girl that she just did not want to go on a trip with her family. There was a lot going on, and her parents ended up forcing her to go. She was 17. Her parents ended up forcing her to go with a lot of guilt and all of that kind of stuff. And in the end, it just blew up. I mean, they just had a huge fight. It was so much drama. It was a huge relationship fracture. And that is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, with a 17-year-old, you can't make them do anything. You don't want to make them do anything. You need to convince them if you really want something. There might be some things that you lay down where, as a family, we're going to do this on Christmas or something like that. But there comes a point where you can ask, you can negotiate, but you cannot force them. And at that point, because you don't want to be bossy. You don't want to be known as this nagging parent. You're just going to shut them down even more and separate them from you. So what happens is you become much more like an advisor. I understand that grandma is so mean to you and that you don't want to see her anymore. Yeah, I mean, I get that. So is there anything I can do to make it easier for you? Because what do you want your relationship with grandma to look like? Do you want to cut her out of your life? Do you want to hold her at a distance? This is more like advising and mentoring. You may guide them. Well, okay, I see she's mean, so you're willing to go for 30 minutes, but then you want to go home. Okay. Or you go for an hour and then I drop you off at the mall. Whatever it may be, that's what it begins to look like. And that's how you are going to be able to raise teenagers. If you try to force anything on them, I guarantee you're just going to get into a fight. Yes, a lot of it is the way that you parents deliver the message to them. I mean, that is the absolute truth. It's always about being calm. It's always about keeping control, not freaking out. Is it hard? Yeah, it's really hard. But at the same time, you don't really have any choice. That's the one thing when I realized when my sons got bigger, not as much as with my daughter, but with my boys, because I watched a lot of mothers with teenagers. So when my boys were around 8 or 9, I watched a lot of moms with teenagers, and I saw so much conflict. And I just was like, I do not want that. These kids were huge. I mean, some of these boys were, if the mom was 5'2", 5'3", 5'5", and then the son was 6 feet or taller and maybe 200 pounds, the relationship dynamic changes. I'm not saying that they should not respect their mother. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there's a sense of power. There's just a physical presence that happens. And as a mother, if you are not aware of that and begin to prepare for it and begin to watch yourself, like, you're just going to lose all respect and control of your kids. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. You see it all the time. They just blow you off. They're like, whatever. You just become like another pest that's just nagging in their ear. And that's the kind of thing that I am trying to help parents prevent. As I continue to work with kids, it just drives home so much more just the generational and the cultural differences between parents and their children. It's just so sad. And although the Bible tells us that there is nothing new under the sun, that is true. But what the Bible is talking about, I believe, is more about human nature and the wickedness of our souls kind of thing. Because there is a lot that's new. I mean, never in all of history has the world been disconnected. Sometimes when I think so much about our teens and what they're going through and what they're experiencing, it's overwhelming for me to even fully process it. And so when I think about that, then as parents, we have to realize that there's a lot that we may not know about our kids, and to move forward with caution and to be careful and to preserve that relationship as much as we can, because we don't know what they're going through. So that's it. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to save this IG. I'm learning how to do all of this, and I'll figure it out, and so that other people can see it. Bye.